Picture this. You walk into a room and the conversations stop. Eyes follow you, but not with admiration, with calculation. Behind every smile lurks a question. How can I use this person? How can I defeat them? How can I take what they have? What do you do when the world conspires against you? When rivals sharpen their knives in boardrooms disguised as meetings? When colleagues collect your mistakes like trophies? When even your closest allies secretly hope to see you stumble, fall and burn? This isn't paranoia. This is reality. 500 years ago, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli understood this brutal truth better than anyone before or since. He lived in a world where betrayal was currency, where today's friend became tomorrow's executioner, where survival demanded not just intelligence, but a willingness to see humanity as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. Machiavelli didn't create the darkness in human nature. He simply held up a mirror and forced us to look. Today, that mirror reflects back at us from every corner of modern life. The office where your promotion depends on someone else's failure. The social media platform where algorithms reward manipulation over authenticity. The political arena where truth bends to power. The friendship that sours the moment success enters the equation. We live in Machiavelli's world more than we dare admit. A world where the naive get devoured and the cunning survive. Where good intentions pave the road to irrelevance. Where the question isn't whether you're moral enough to succeed, but whether you're shrewd enough to endure. Machiavelli believed the world is not kind, but cunning and survival belongs not to the good, but to the strategic. He understood that when everyone wants you to fail, playing by their rules guarantees your destruction. The only way to win is to master a different game entirely. But here's the question that will haunt you long after this video ends. In a world built on deception, ambition, and hidden agendas, are you willing to see reality as it truly is, or will you continue pretending that fairness, loyalty, and trust are anything more than beautiful lies we tell ourselves? The choice is yours. But choose carefully, because in Machiavelli's world, the innocent don't just lose, they disappear entirely. To understand why Machiavelli saw the world through such dark lenses, we must first step into his reality, a reality that would make our modern political dramas look like children's games. Florence, 1469. The year Niccolò Machiavelli was born into a world drowning in its own beauty and brutality. Picture the Italian Renaissance, not as your art history textbook portrayed it, but as it truly was, a glittering facade hiding centuries of accumulated hatred, ambition, and blood. The Renaissance wasn't just about art and enlightenment. It was about power, raw, naked, and absolutely ruthless. City-states like Florence, Venice, and Milan existed in a perpetual state of warfare, not just with foreign enemies, but with each other, and most dangerously, with themselves. Every street corner held a conspiracy. Every palace chamber echoed with whispered plots. Every handshake concealed a dagger. Machiavelli wasn't born into power. He was no prince, no aristocrat blessed with inherited authority. He was the son of a lawyer, intelligent, observant, but ultimately expendable in the grand theater of Renaissance politics. This outsider status would prove to be his greatest advantage. While the powerful played their games, Machiavelli watched, and what he saw would change how we understand human nature forever. For 14 years, he served the Florentine Republic as a diplomat and political advisor. He witnessed firsthand how promises dissolved like morning mist, how today's alliance became tomorrow's betrayal, how moral leaders fell while cunning manipulators rose. He watched good men destroyed by their own virtue and evil men rewarded for their cruelty. Then came 1512, the year everything changed. Political upheaval swept through Florence like a plague. The Republic fell. The Medici family returned to power, and Machiavelli found himself on the wrong side of history. Accused of conspiracy, he was imprisoned, tortured, broken. The methods used were designed not just to extract information, but to shatter the human spirit entirely. Most men would have emerged from such an experience either mad or broken. Machiavelli emerged with crystal clarity. In his forced exile, removed from power but not from observation, he began to write, not poetry about love or treatises on virtue, but something far more dangerous, the truth about how power actually works. The prince wasn't born from academic theory or philosophical speculation. It was carved from pain, humiliation, and the bitter recognition that the world operates according to laws far different from those taught in churches or dreamed of by idealists. Machiavelli had seen behind the curtain of civilization, and what he found there was not divine order or natural goodness, but something far more primal, the eternal struggle between predator and prey. In his exile, watching the political games continue without him, Machiavelli realized that morality, as most people understand it, is a luxury reserved for those who never truly face the choice between virtue and survival. Power demands a different code, one that recognizes human nature not as it should be, but as it inevitably is, selfish, deceptive, and ruthlessly self-interested. This wasn't cynicism speaking. This was clarity born from pain. Here's where Machiavelli forces us to confront a truth that makes most people physically uncomfortable. Humans are not inherently good. We are not noble creatures temporarily corrupted by circumstance. We are at our core selfish, envious, fickle, and capable of breathtaking betrayal when it serves our interests. This isn't misanthropy. This is psychology. Think about your own life. That friend who celebrated your successes until you achieved something they couldn't, then suddenly became distant, critical, subtly undermining. The colleague who smiled at meetings while collecting evidence of your mistakes. The mentor who guided you until you threatened to surpass them, then began withholding opportunities, advice, support. Machiavelli would have nodded knowingly at each of these scenarios because he understood what modern psychology has since confirmed. Humans are hardwired for competition, status-seeking, and tribalism. We cooperate when it benefits us and betray when betrayal offers greater rewards. The only question is whether we admit this reality or pretend it doesn't exist. Consider the workplace, any workplace. Observe how quickly collaborative relationships dissolve when promotions are announced. Watch how information becomes weaponized, how credit gets stolen, how blame gets shifted. Notice how the person sitting next to you, sharing coffee and jokes, transforms into a competitor the moment your interests conflict with theirs. Machiavelli saw this pattern everywhere because it is everywhere. In families, where inheritance creates enemies from siblings. In friendships, where success breeds resentment. In romantic relationships, where love battles with ego, control, and the constant temptation of something better just beyond reach. But here's what makes Machiavelli truly dangerous. He doesn't waste energy lamenting this reality. He doesn't write self-help books about how to change human nature or create better people. Instead, he asks a far more practical question. Given that this is how humans actually behave, how do you survive and thrive among them? His answer is both liberating and terrifying. You stop expecting goodness and start anticipating self-interest. You stop trusting promises and start watching actions. You stop assuming loyalty and start engineering dependence. You stop hoping for fairness and start creating your own advantages. Modern research validates Machiavelli's observations with uncomfortable precision. Studies show that people consistently overestimate their own honesty while underestimating others' capacity for deception. We project our stated values onto others while acting according to our hidden motivations. We rationalize our betrayals as necessary while condemning identical behavior in others as evil. The corporate world operates on pure Machiavellian principles disguised as professional courtesy. Networking is relationship manipulation with better branding. Performance reviews are exercises in political theater. Company loyalty is a myth maintained by those two, naive to recognize that their employer would eliminate their position the moment it became profitable to do so. Social media has created the perfect laboratory for Machiavellian human nature. Every post is a calculated performance. Every interaction carries hidden agendas. Everyone curates their image while consuming others' fabricated realities. The platforms themselves are built on addiction, manipulation, and the monetization of human insecurity. Machiavelli's central insight cuts through all our comfortable delusions. The person who survives is not the one who trusts, but the one who anticipates betrayal before it arrives. Not the one who hopes for loyalty, but the one who makes betrayal more costly than cooperation. Not the one who believes in goodness, but the one who prepares for the inevitable moment when goodness proves insufficient against ambition. This knowledge is power. But it's also isolation. Once you see humans as Machiavelli did, you can never return to innocence. In Machiavelli's world, life is an eternal duel between two forces, virtù and fortuna. Not virtue as we understand it, moral goodness or ethical behavior, but virtue as power, skill, cunning, and the ruthless ability to bend circumstances to your will. Against this stands fortuna, luck, chance, the chaotic unpredictability of existence that can destroy decades of careful planning in a single moment. Picture a ship in a storm. Half the crew prays to God, hoping divine intervention will save them. They represent most of humanity, passive, helpless, waiting for external forces to determine their fate. The other half works frantically to navigate through the chaos, adjusting sails, fighting the wheel, refusing to surrender control even as waves threaten to swallow them whole. These are Machiavelli's chosen, those who refuse to be victims of circumstance. Fortuna, in Machiavelli's vision, is not just luck. She is a woman to be conquered, dominated, forced into submission through sheer will and strategic thinking. This imagery sounds brutal. Because it is brutal, Machiavelli understood that survival requires a violence of spirit that most people lack the stomach to embrace. Consider the entrepreneur who launches a business knowing that 90% fail. Fortuna whispers that the odds are impossible, that failure is virtually guaranteed, that prudent people choose safer paths. But virtù responds with preparation, adaptation, relentless persistence, and the willingness to destroy competitors who stand in the way. When the market shifts unexpectedly, when funding disappears, when key employees betray them, they don't collapse. They evolve. Think about the political candidate facing a scandal that should end their career. Fortuna has delivered what appears to be a fatal blow, but virtù transforms crisis into opportunity, shifting the narrative, attacking the attackers, turning weakness into strength through pure audacity. The candidate who survives is not the one with the cleanest record, but the one with the most ruthless response to adversity. In modern corporate life, this battle plays out daily. Fortuna delivers economic downturns, technological disruptions, regulatory changes that destroy entire industries overnight. Companies that survive are not necessarily the ones with the best products or most ethical practices. They're the ones with leaders willing to make brutal decisions quickly, to sacrifice employees, partnerships, even core values when survival demands it. Machiavelli's lesson is both empowering and terrifying. You have more control than you think, but exercising that control requires becoming someone most people would consider monstrous, the executive who lays off thousands to save the company. The politician who abandons campaign promises to maintain power. The friend who distances themselves from you when association threatens their reputation. This is not about becoming evil. This is about recognizing that the world is indifferent to your goodness, your fairness, your noble intentions. Fortune respects only one thing: the will to fight back when fighting back seems impossible. The question Machiavelli poses is stark. Will you be the person who complains about unfairness while circumstances destroy you? Or will you be the person who seizes control of your destiny, regardless of the moral cost? In this battle between virtue and fortune, neutrality is not an option. Those who refuse to choose sides become casualties of those who embrace the fight. Here lies Machiavelli's most scandalous insight, the one that transforms good people into heretics and naive idealists into dangerous fools. It is not necessary to be good, only to appear good. Reality is what people believe, not what actually exists. Power belongs not to the honest, but to those who master the art of perception. This revelation should terrify you because it means everything you think you know about the people around you might be carefully constructed theater. The boss who preaches company values while quietly undermining competitors. The politician who campaigns on family values while destroying families through policy. The influencer who promotes authenticity while every moment of their life is scripted for maximum engagement. Consider the modern political landscape. Voters consistently choose candidates who project strength, confidence, and relatability over those who demonstrate actual competence or integrity. The candidate who admits uncertainty, acknowledges mistakes, or reveals complex thinking is labeled weak and indecisive. Meanwhile, the candidate who lies with conviction, who projects absolute certainty even when wrong, who manufactures charisma like a product, they win elections. Machiavelli understood that humans judge by surfaces because examining depths requires too much effort and intelligence. We believe what we want to believe, see what we expect to see, and trust what makes us feel comfortable. The skilled manipulator doesn't fight these tendencies. They exploit them. The corporate world operates on identical principles. The executive who takes credit for subordinates' successes while deflecting blame for failures rises faster than the one who accurately represents their contributions. The employee who manages up effectively, who makes bosses feel intelligent and important, advances beyond those who simply do excellent work without the performance aspect. Social media has weaponized this dynamic beyond Machiavelli's wildest imagination. Every platform rewards appearance over substance. The lifestyle blogger with crushing debt who posts pictures of luxury vacations. The fitness influencer whose physique comes from steroids and surgery while promoting natural methods. The thought leader whose insights are plagiarized from others while they claim original thinking. But here's what makes this truly insidious. Once you understand the power of appearances, you face an impossible choice. Remain authentic and watch manipulators succeed around you, or adopt their methods and become complicit in the system you once criticized. The most successful people in every field understand this dynamic intuitively. They craft personal brands as carefully as corporations craft marketing campaigns. They control information flow, manage their reputations, and present carefully curated versions of themselves designed to achieve specific outcomes. Machiavelli's insight reaches deeper than simple deception. He recognized that human society is built on agreed-upon fictions. Money has value because we believe it does. Laws have power because we consent to their authority. Leaders command obedience because we accept their legitimacy. None of these things have inherent reality. They exist only in the collective imagination. The person who controls perception controls reality itself. The company that shapes consumer beliefs about their products. The media outlet that frames news stories to influence public opinion. The individual who manages their reputation so skillfully that others see them as they wish to be seen rather than as they actually are. This creates a haunting question. In a world where appearances matter more than truth, where success depends on managing perceptions rather than delivering substance, what does authenticity even mean? Are you being honest, or are you simply performing honesty for an audience that includes yourself? Machiavelli would argue that the distinction is meaningless. In the end, only results matter. The mask you wear becomes your face. The role you play becomes your identity. The appearance you create becomes your reality. Now we arrive at the heart of Machiavelli's genius, his tactical framework for survival when the entire world seems aligned against your success. This isn't abstract philosophy anymore. This is warfare disguised as everyday life. And every principle could mean the difference between victory and destruction. First principle, never rely on loyalty. Engineer dependence. Loyalty is an emotion, and emotions change. Dependence is a structure, and structures endure. The colleague who supports you because they like you will abandon you the moment someone more likable appears. But the colleague who supports you because their success depends on yours will fight to keep you in power, even if they despise you personally. Think about the manager who makes themselves indispensable by becoming the sole keeper of critical information. They don't build loyalty through kindness. They build dependence through necessity. Remove them, and systems collapse. This is why the most secure people in any organization are often the most difficult to replace, not the most beloved. Second principle, strike before you are struck. In hostile environments, defensive thinking guarantees defeat. While you're hoping for fairness, your enemies are planning your destruction. The person who waits for attacks to materialize before responding has already lost the war. Machiavelli understood that preemptive action, while appearing aggressive, is actually the most reliable form of self-defense. Consider the executive who learns of a colleague's plan to undermine them. The noble response is to confront directly, hoping to resolve the conflict through honest conversation. The Machiavellian response is to neutralize the threat before it can execute, perhaps by positioning the colleague for a lateral transfer, or by building alliances that make their attack impossible to succeed. Third principle, Keep allies divided so none grow too powerful. The greatest threat to your position often comes not from obvious enemies, but from allies who outgrow their need for your partnership. Machiavelli watched this pattern repeatedly in Renaissance politics. The advisor who becomes more influential than the ruler, the ally who becomes a rival, the supporter who decides they deserve your position more than you do. The solution is elegant and ruthless. Never allow any single relationship to become powerful enough to threaten you. Distribute your dependencies across multiple people. Create competing interests among your supporters. Ensure that anyone who might challenge you faces opposition from others who benefit from your continued success. Fourth principle, build fear and respect before trust. Trust is fragile and easily broken. Fear and respect are durable and self-reinforcing. This doesn't mean becoming a tyrant. It means establishing clear consequences for betrayal and consistent rewards for loyalty. People need to understand that supporting you leads to advancement, while opposing you leads to marginalization. The most effective leaders combine this with genuine care for those who serve them faithfully. They are generous to friends and ruthless to enemies, creating powerful incentives for others to choose friendship over hostility. Fifth principle, control information flow. In any hostile environment, information is the ultimate weapon. Those who control what others know, control what others think, feel, and do. Never share complete information with anyone. Always know more than you reveal. Use strategic disclosure to influence behavior and strategic concealment to maintain advantages. Modern technology has made this principle both more powerful and more dangerous. The person who understands social media algorithms, who can shape narratives and manage reputations online, who can coordinate information campaigns, they wield influence that would have amazed Renaissance princes. These principles work because they align with human nature rather than fighting against it. They recognize that people respond to incentives, not ideals. They acknowledge that self-interest drives behavior more reliably than moral arguments. They accept that power dynamics exist, whether we acknowledge them or not. But here's the cost. Implementing these strategies requires becoming someone most people would consider manipulative, calculating, perhaps even cruel. Machiavelli understood this trade-off perfectly. The choice is not between good and evil. It's between effectiveness and irrelevance. 5 centuries after his death, Niccolò Machiavelli remains one of the most feared names in intellectual history. Machiavellian has become synonymous with manipulation, cruelty, and evil. But this reputation reveals more about our collective psychology than about Machiavelli's actual teachings. We fear Machiavelli because he forces us to confront the gap between who we claim to be and who we actually are. He holds up a mirror that reflects not our aspirations, but our actions, not our stated values, but our revealed priorities, not the world we wish existed, but the world that actually surrounds us every day. Consider how we react to his insights. When Machiavelli observes that people judge by appearances rather than reality, we call him cynical, while simultaneously spending billions on marketing, fashion, and social media presentation. When he notes that humans are primarily motivated by self-interest, we call him evil, while structuring our entire economic system around exactly that assumption. When he suggests that survival sometimes requires abandoning moral constraints, we call him amoral, while our history books celebrate leaders who made precisely those choices. Every war hero who killed enemies, every revolutionary who overthrew governments, every business leader who destroyed competitors, they all applied Machiavellian principles while claiming higher moral ground. The truth is that Machiavelli didn't create the darkness in human nature. He simply documented what he observed. He wasn't prescribing how people should behave. He was describing how people actually do behave when survival, success, or power are at stake. Our hatred of Machiavelli is really hatred of ourselves. We despise him for revealing truths we'd rather not acknowledge. We prefer comfortable lies about human goodness to uncomfortable truths about human nature. We want to believe that morality and success are compatible, that good people finish first, that virtue is rewarded and evil is punished. Machiavelli shatters these illusions without offering replacements. He provides no comforting alternative narrative, no hope for human transformation, no promise that better systems can create better people. He simply says, "This is reality. Deal with it or be destroyed by it." This creates a profound psychological discomfort. If Machiavelli is right, then every moral framework becomes questionable. Every institution built on trust becomes vulnerable. Every relationship based on loyalty becomes potentially dangerous. Every act of goodness becomes strategically risky. Most people cannot live with this level of uncertainty and moral ambiguity. They need to believe in justice, fairness, and meaning. They need to trust that good intentions matter, that honesty is rewarded, that virtue leads to happiness. Machiavelli offers none of these comforts, but here's the question that haunts every thinking person. What if he's right? What if the world really is indifferent to morality? What if survival really does require strategic thinking that most people would consider unethical? The fear of Machiavelli is ultimately the fear of moral responsibility without moral certainty, the terrifying recognition that we must choose how to live, without knowing whether our choices are right or wrong. We return now to where we began, but you are no longer the same person who started this journey. You have seen behind the curtain of civilization, glimpsed the machinery that actually drives human behavior, and confronted truths that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Machiavelli has shown you that the world is not a place of fairness, but of strategy. Not a realm where virtue is rewarded, but where cunning determines survival. Not a system where good intentions matter, but where effective actions create reality. The question that opened this exploration now takes on deeper meaning. What do you do when everyone wants you to fail? Now you know the answer, and it terrifies you as much as it empowers you. You can choose to remain innocent, clinging to beliefs about human goodness and moral justice, while others manipulate, deceive, and outmaneuver you. You can continue expecting fairness in an unfair world, loyalty from people whose interests conflict with yours, and honesty from those who benefit from deception. Or you can embrace the Machiavellian path. You can learn to see people as they are rather than as they claim to be. You can develop strategies that account for selfishness, betrayal, and competition. You can master the arts of perception, influence, and strategic thinking that separate winners from victims, but understand the cost. Once you begin thinking like Machiavelli, you cannot return to innocence. Once you recognize the masks people wear, you cannot unsee them. Once you understand how power actually works, you cannot pretend that virtue alone will protect you. The choice before you is not between good and evil. It's between clarity and delusion, between strategic thinking and wishful hoping, between accepting responsibility for your own survival and waiting for others to treat you fairly. Machiavelli believed that fortune favors the bold, but only the strategically bold. The world belongs not to the good, but to the shrewd. Not to the trusting, but to those who trust strategically. Not to the innocent, but to those who choose their battles with intelligence and fight them with ruthless precision. Which will you be? The answer to that question will determine not just your success, but your very survival, in a world that has always been, and will always be, fundamentally Machiavellian.